And the run comes to an end. I'm Chris McPherson. Welcome to the Postgame Show presented by Ricoh, joined alongside former Eagles linebacker Ike Reese. And Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints proved to be Nick Foles' kryptonite in the postseason as they erased an early 14-0 deficit to win 20-14 to advance to the NFC Championship game. So very tough way for the 2018 campaign and the Super Bowl championship run to come to an end. And as Alshon Jeffrey's last effort pass attempt went through his hands into the arms of Marshawn Lattimore for the interception, a lot of people are going to be getting on him for what happened. But what we have to realize is, first and foremost, we don't have a Super Bowl in this city if it's not for Alshon Jeffrey.
Oh, yeah.
So obviously he's going to be very disappointed. But you saw the way the head coach Doug Pearson and quarterback Nick Foles and his teammates went over to him afterwards. Someone who gave so many big plays over the last two seasons. Obviously a difficult way for the season to come to a close. But again, this team doesn't get as far as it does without Alshon. Certainly a valiant effort. Everyone looks back to that 48-7 game back in Week 11 and said there's no way the Eagles can go back to the Saints' house, the huge advantage in the Superdome, and make up that kind of deficit. But the Eagles were up 14-0 and held this vaunted Saints offense, prolific all season long, to 20 points. Nick Foles was appearing to lead them on yet another game-winning drive at the end, and unfortunately, Lattimore's second interception of the game ends the dream. So the Eagles season is over, 9-7 in the regular season. They get a win in the postseason, but fall 6 points short today, Ike, to the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, listen, a tough game. You knew it would be a hard-fought game with the Eagles playing as well as they had played coming down the stretch. The Saints basically haven't played a real game in about 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So the game sort of played out like I thought it would from the beginning. I thought the Saints would come out a little rusty. Certainly thought the Eagles would be charged up. They were able to take advantage of that early Saints rust, but not really able to sustain it. Once the Saints were able to collect themselves and start to get a little bit of rhythm, it seemed like the Eagles couldn't get anything going offensively. Just a difficult way for the season to end, but a valiant effort from this team to put themselves in this position. Alshon Jeffrey has been so reliable all season long, big part of why this team is where they were today. Certainly he would like to have that pass back. No need to hang his head. No one feels worse than Alshon Jeffrey does right now, and all of his teammates certainly feel for him. So just a tough loss. Got to tip your cap to the Saints. They're a good football team. Listen, the Eagles have been playing with their backs against the wall for about a month and a half, and it's difficult. And this is why most teams from a 6 seed don't make it to the Super Bowl, because when you battle to get into the playoffs and as much energy and effort that you have to exert to dig yourself out of a hole, when you're facing a team like the Saints that's basically been sitting back, resting, waiting for today. They've been waiting for today for about a month since they clinched the #1 seed and knew that they would have home field advantage. They've been waiting for today. And so the Eagles have exerted a lot of energy to put themselves in this position. And they basically ran out of gas today. They ran up against a very good Saints team. They were gamed. The Eagles were gamed today. They just basically ran out of gas offensively. Give the Saints a lot of credit. It's the defense that has played well coming down the stretch. I thought the Eagles defense came into this game with a very good game plan. But listen, Michael Thomas, one of the best receivers in the game. We know about Drew Brees. He's a Hall of Famer 5 years after he plays his last game. Just a tough way, but they found themselves in position, and to lose the game basically off a tip ball on the final drive of the game, man, that's a heartbreaker. That's a heartbreaker, but how can you not be proud of this team's overall effort to sort of put themselves in this position?
Nobody gave them a chance.
Right.
And then you look at the course of the game. It's great they got 14-0, but then you look at the defensive side of the football. Fletcher Cox in and out of the lineup due to injuries. Brandon Graham has to go to the sideline at one point. Rasul Douglas in and out of the lineup.
Yeah.
Avonte Maddox has to come out of the game. You're just wondering how many more injuries can the defense sustain, especially with Fletcher Cox, your best player on that side of the ball, and arguably your best player on the entire team. Okay, the heart and soul, especially of that defense, knowing that you had to limit this explosive Saints offense, you're going to need to get pressure up the middle. And Cox gamed his way coming back into the lineup, fighting his way. Remember, the one time he came back into the game after suffering the foot injury initially, he drew a holding penalty on the very first play.
Yeah.
Okay, so he made a number of disruptive plays. The defensive line, knowing that Jim Schwartz wanted to play 7 defenders back, going with mostly the dime and nickel personnel throughout the course of the game, knowing that we have to rely on that front 4. And look, Michael Bennett, Chris Long, Brandon Graham, you guys got to play a lot of snaps, okay?
Yeah.
And especially when you had that long drive in the third quarter that took 18 plays, was it? It was an 18-play drive, okay, that goes for 92 yards, 11:29 in terms of game clock. I think it was about 25 minutes in real time. So, again, 18-play drive. Those guys are battling at the end, but they got the stop they need at the very end. They forced Will Lutz to attempt that 52-yard field goal after Michael Bennett gets a tackle for loss.
Big play.
Huge play. Shoves Max Unger, the center, right into the back there, forces Kamara to get the loss there. Will Lutz pushes the ball wide right, and you said to yourself, is this going to happen again?
Yeah.
Another special teams play, another missed field goal here, given an opportunity for the Eagles to sustain their season, to keep things alive. And it seemed like Nick Foles was getting into the rhythm. They had the penalty, the roughing the passer call. They kept the drive alive. Zach Ertz had a play there to move the sticks. And then you thought, okay, wide open pass, Alshon Jeffrey. And, he's a guy who's going to come up with that
99 out of 10.
99 times out of 100, 9 times out of 10, whatever you want to say. Unfortunately, that's the one time that he doesn't come up with it, and the ball goes into the hands of Marshawn Lattimore. That's the problem, is the ball goes up in the air, and at that point, it's fate. That's putting it right in the Saints' hands. And Marshawn Lattimore, who really turned the game earlier in the second quarter when the Eagles were driving, already up 14-0, and Nick Foles has Zach Ertz on a wheel route down the left sideline. Okay, that's probably a touchdown if he puts it a little farther out. Unfortunately,
you got to make. You got to make that throw.
You got to make the throw.
He's made that throw.
Got to make the throw there. But Marshawn Lattimore did a great job come up with the interception, okay? And that really turned the tide, okay? Then the Saints are coming back. They're getting 20 unanswered points there to finish off the win here, 20-14. And then, of course, on the real key in that first half there was when the Saints have the 4th down. Well, it's the 3rd down. Fletcher Cox draws the holding penalty. Okay, the Eagles decide to decline. It's 4th and short.
As they should.
And that's the biggest thing. Doug Pearson, when we hear from him in a few minutes, is probably going to be asked, did you kind of waver about the decision? I thought he made the right call because with this defense, I'm not giving the ball back to Drew Brees. We saw this time and time again on 3rd and long situations. I'm not giving Drew Brees another opportunity with Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas finishing with 12 catches, 171 yards, and a touchdown. Okay? So I'm not giving Drew Brees another chance. It's 4th and short. And the Eagles were well aware of what Taysom Hill and the fake punt possibility. The starting defense is out there on the field. You have your starting defense personnel lined up to stop it. Taysom Hill gets the 1st down. They're able to move the chains. And then 4th and goal, you figure Sean Payton he knew the Saints were against the ropes.
Take the 3. I really did.
I think Sean Payton, realized this Eagles team came to play. This was not the Eagles team. Very, very first play of the game. Okay, Ted Ginn, who has been out of the lineup due to injury. Drew Brees goes deep down the middle for him, trying to test the Eagles secondary. Crayvon LeBlanc, who had an outstanding game. When we talk about bright spots of this season, Crayvon LeBlanc comes up with the interception to set the tone. Okay, 3 total tackles, the interception. Also saved a touchdown on a Mark Ingram run later on in the game when it was starting to look like the Saints had control of the game. They did have control of the game. It would look like they were ready to put the game away. Crayvon LeBlanc was not going to allow them to get the easy touchdown there. So right there, you say to yourself, Crayvon LeBlanc gets the interception, gets the Eagles the ball, and they go down the field, and then Jordan Matthews over the top for the touchdown with Nick Foles. And you said to yourself, this is what the Eagles needed, because back on November 11th, or November 18th in that Week 11 showdown, I should say, the Saints got 17-0 in the second quarter, scored on their first 3 drives, gained over 200 yards on those drives. The game was over, okay, in the second quarter. Here, the Eagles are able to get the 14-0 lead because they get the ball back, and then Nick Foles goes in from 1 yard out on the QB sneak. They're up 14-0. This was the start that the Eagles needed, okay? The thing was, the Saints, a tested team, a veteran team, okay? Drew Brees and Sean Payton together at home now in the playoffs, 6-0 since 2006 when the two were first united together. They knew what they were doing. It's a veteran team with plenty of skill position talent on offense and a very, very good defense that was able to turn the tide on the Eagles' offense and really limit the Eagles at what they could do. I thought Nick Foles missed a couple of throws. There were plays there to be had. Okay, I thought the one knock about Nick Foles today, a number of underthrown passes.
Yeah.
That's probably the one thing I would say. But the offensive line, even after losing Brandon Brooks, and that's going to be something
You knew
we have
that
to
was
find
going
out.
to be huge.
That's going to be huge.
Yeah.
Jason Peters
Yeah.
came out of the game late.
Yeah.
Vaitai had to go back in there. So the pass protection held up nicely. Okay, that was the one thing you were concerned about. Would Nick Foles have time in the pocket? Even though he does a great job of getting rid of the ball quickly, would he be comfortable in the pocket? He just wasn't able to quite get in that rhythm.
Yeah.
But offensive line did a great job protecting. But Nick Foles, after that second touchdown drive, just not able to get in that same rhythm that he was. I credit the Saints defense there for playing great press coverage, okay? Eli Apple, Marshawn Lattimore, those fast linebackers, they were testing the Eagles receivers and pass catchers and limiting the yards after the catch.
Yeah, that's basically what they decided to do. They saw in the first quarter that they weren't able to get the pressure on Nick Foles that they wanted to. You had the cornerbacks playing off, and Nick was able to basically pick them apart. He had the best stretch of the game in that first quarter.
Yeah.
He was basically, I think he was 8 of 8 or 8 of 9, 127 yards, threw a touchdown as well as rushed in for a touchdown. But then they decided we're going to back off or we're going to jam the receivers at the line of scrimmage to try to disrupt the timing. And when you look at the big difference in this game, in this Eagles offense, is they struggled on third down. 2 for 7 on third down is where they struggled at. To me, that was really the biggest difference in the game. The Eagles, since they've been on this stretch, they've been able to be 50% plus on third down, extending drives, wearing teams out, wearing teams down, and that's how they won football games. Today, they weren't able to extend drives after that first quarter. They had the 2 70-yard play drives early, and then after that, they didn't really have anything else after that, and that's where they basically were worn down. Defense on the field way too long.
Yep.
Saints offense 8 of 15 on third down, able to extend those drives. You talked about that 92-yard drive. What was it, 18 plays?
18 plays, 92 yards, twice. The Saints had a 2nd and 20.
Yeah.
2nd and 20 twice. 3 third down conversions on that drive. 3rd and 3, 3rd and 1, short conversions, but a 3rd and 10.
That's where they wore you down at. I mean, that's where they wore this defense down at basically today. And the offense not being able to win that time of possession. That's how you beat the Saints. You keep that offense on the sideline. And we weren't really able to do that today. I thought our defense, they held in there as long as they could.
They did.
They made the Saints chew up clock. They didn't give up a ton of big plays. Now, they gave up the third down conversions. But to hold this Saints offense to 20 points, I mean, going into the game, that's what you want. That's what you want. You want this to be a game in the fourth quarter, a one-possession game. To me, from a game plan standpoint, the Eagles, the game played out exactly how they wanted to, even with them having the ball on the final drive. It's just, the bounce didn't go their way. That ball bounces off Alshon Jeffrey's hands right into Marshawn Lattimore's hands. And it's unfortunate, man, because I felt like they were going down to win this game. I really did.
We've seen the script.
I felt like they were going to win this game.
It goes back to last week in Chicago. You just feel a certain, sort of like Nick Foles in the pocket, you just feel a sense of calm, knowing that when he's in command at quarterback, they're going to find a way.
Yeah.
And you just felt like this team was going to find a way once again. And they were moving the ball down the field. It was a wide open pass there to Jeffrey. Good throw on the hands. Just didn't come up with it.
Yep.
Okay? And again, I'm sure a lot of fans, and I'm sure on your show tomorrow, Mark Cerise, Sports Radio 94 WIP, a lot of people are going to be bashing Alshon.
No, you think not?
There's going to be frustration. I don't know.
You know what? I think, at least from listening to the fans this week, right, there was already trepidation going into this game.
There was, I'm sure.
This is a tough game. So at least the tone that I got from most of the fans was they were excited the Eagles made it this far. Middle of the season didn't look like it was going to get to this point. This team really dug in deep. They were able to make something out of a season that looked like it was lost. We lost our starting quarterback once again. And I think this fan base, at least after winning that Super Bowl last year, it's funny to say, they aren't as rabid of a fan base as they used to be. Can they be passionate? Can they be frustrated? Sure they can. But I think there's a sense of appreciation about this team that this fan base has. And it hasn't been that long since they won the Super Bowl. And so we all knew it was going to be difficult to repeat. No one has done it since the Patriots did it back in '04 against us. It was going to be difficult. This team overcame a lot to get to the second round of the playoffs, and Alshon has been a big part of that this year.
Especially down the stretch.
Yeah,
Really.
I'm actually, Chris, I'm actually proud of our fan base that I don't believe there'll be a lot of frustration over the way the season ended, as much as it will be a lot of appreciation for the way the team didn't give up and really fought to the very end.
This team, in a lot of ways, epitomized the city of Philadelphia.
Yeah, I think this fan base recognizes that.
Certainly, because they knew that it wasn't, we can get into your season takeaways, and it wasn't quite right from about midway through the season. Okay,
Yep.
It wasn't that same magic that we were going to have in 2017. I mean, basically, the Eagles were the Saints a year ago.
Yeah.
Okay, in terms of the fact that the Saints were, clearing away one of the best teams in the NFC all season long, home field advantage. You saw the dancing and the joy that they were having throughout the course of the game. That was the Eagles a year ago. Okay, the Eagles were blowing out opponents left and right, steamrolling through the competition, and then they were the ones who got to enjoy home field advantage and wait for the Atlanta Falcons to come into town for that first playoff matchup. And right from there, you go into the Super Bowl. The difference, of course, is what were we going to get from Nick Foles, okay?
Yeah.
Because the Saints have had the constant in Drew Brees throughout this entire time. The Eagles, get into the playoffs to get the home field advantage with Nick Foles coming in there late in the season, but you didn't quite know if he was going to be able to carry them on that magical run that he did. And after he did that a year ago, you said to yourself, well, I guess the cards could be in place, the stars could be aligned for it to happen again because you got in the way you did on the last day of the regular season. But as you said, it's why 6 seeds don't typically advance that far into the playoffs. You have your, one-offs here and there. The Green Bay Packers and New York Giants have won the Super Bowl as a 6 seed, but it's so difficult because, as you said, most likely you're battling just to get into the playoffs. And then once you're in, you're on the road nonstop.
Every game,
And you had to go to Chicago to face the number 1 defense.
Which was hard.
Amazing home field advantage there. You get the dome field advantage today, and we saw that firsthand where the Eagles were forced to take a timeout early in the second half. Okay, false start by Isaac Seumalo there in the second down.
And that was
play.
huge. That was huge coming out of the locker room. Not really getting any momentum coming out of the locker room was big time. The Saints were able to continue to feed off of that crowd. I thought coming out of the locker room, if the Eagles could at least have a drive, even if they don't get points out of the drive, but if they could just put together a drive where they have the Saints defense on their heels to sort of establish some type of confidence and momentum, we would have a different ball game in the second half. As it was, Eagles come out and they sort of are snake bitten and they sort of have these self-inflicted wounds, and that crowd is able to get into the game. You get a 3 and out, Saints get the ball, and you're behind the 8 ball again. So it was this, when you're on the road, you almost have to play a perfect game.
Yeah.
I mean, you really do. You almost have to play a perfect game. That's why teams fight so hard to get home field advantage, because even if you get off to a slow start, you have your crowd to sort of rely on, to sort of feed off of. And that's what the Saints were able to do. They got off to a slow start, but that crowd kept them in the game. And once they started to get a little bit of positivity going, they were able to build some momentum and get that crowd behind them. And so it's just difficult. The Eagles really had the ideal start. It's just unfortunate.
You look at the numbers. I mean, when you see the numbers there in the box score there, you look at them and you say to yourself, how was this even a 6-point game? It's because the Eagles had, like you said, the start that they need to put themselves in.
That's what you wanted.
Yeah, it was a dream scenario to come out of the gates leading 14-0 at the end of the first quarter, driving to actually extend the lead.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, you've got to be much sharper on the road. And we saw the Eagles get away with some turnovers last week in Chicago that they weren't able to, the Bears didn't make them pay for it.
Right.
The Saints, and you knew that with Drew Brees. That was the biggest thing, where last week you're going against first-time playoff quarterback in Mitchell Trubisky, where game's on the line on a foul drive. Trubisky, give him credit, got the Bears in position to win the game. They missed the kick, or Trayvon Hester blocked, I should say.
Right.
But here, you knew that Drew Brees in that dome was going to be very, very difficult to stop there. So as we start to reflect upon what the Eagles were able to accomplish here in 2018, why don't we get into your takeaways? Start first and foremost with how the Eagles overcame a slow start. They got the win on opening night against Atlanta. It was an amazing crowd, vibrant energy. The banner goes up, but then after that, they're humbled against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They win in Carson Wentz's first start of the season, comes back from the ACL, LCL injuries, beats the Indianapolis Colts to get them to 2-1. Then that Tennessee game, the loss in overtime, kind of started things on a downward trend where you started to wonder, like we said earlier, whether this team would even make the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, we had a chance to find out what it was like to have sort of a Super Bowl hangover, right? We've never known what it was like to be Super Bowl champions. And through an offseason of celebration, of adulation, of being patted on the back and everything, as it was well-deserved, it's tough to sort of get out of that malaise. It's tough to sort of have that same hunger and determination and focus coming into training camp, and the Eagles found that out firsthand. Not only that, they had to overcome who was going to be at the quarterback position to start this season off. Was it going to be Nick Foles? Was it going to be Carson Wentz, who was fighting diligently to get back on the field to join his teammates and sort of help them defend this championship crown? And you saw it early in the season where it was just choppy, inconsistent play. They looked good one week, then they found a way to lose games the following week, not being able to put together consecutive wins into the second half of the season versus the Giants and the Redskins. They really had a tough time overcoming that slow start, but they were able to do it.
All right, we're going to send it now to the Superdome. Head coach Doug Pearson about to address the media there following the Eagles' 20-14 loss. Let's hear from the head coach.
No, not really. I think it's a credit to them, obviously, but you see, I think sometimes how, just the ebb and flow of a game, they got some breaks in there. We were moving the ball again. I mean, I think we had that turnover, that throw to Zach Ertz up the sideline there that got intercepted, and it just kind of momentum changed and went down and scored on that. And so nothing that they did, obviously. We just didn't make enough plays to either stay on the field or continue drives, execute, and score.
So we watched you as your players came off the field, greeting each one of them, and it seemed like some were holding back tears. It seemed like you were holding back tears. Can you describe how difficult that was for you?
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough because it's so final. You're here at the end of the season. There's no more football. For 2018, and just told the guys, just keep their heads up. And we set out on a journey way back in OTAs, and we keep talking about having no regrets. And leave everything out on the field, and they did that tonight. They did that this afternoon, and they battled right to the end. We had opportunities. So proud of them, proud of the season, proud of the adversity that we faced all season long, and found our way to get into the postseason, and just wish the Saints good luck going forward.
As a follow-up to that, what's the message for Alshon specifically after that final?
Hey, it's hard. I mean, it's really hard because he's so down. But for me, it's about staying positive. And listen, he's made many big catches for us this season, and he will continue to do that. And I just told him he's got to keep his head up and don't let one play define you. It's not who he is. He's too good of a player, and he needs to. He'll embrace it, obviously, but and he'll be better for it. But I told him just to keep his head up and keep plowing.
On that play, the clock was running down, on to the 2-minute warning, but you ran the play before the 2-minute warning. The look was there; he was open.
Yeah.
But so, is that why you ran the play at that point, or was there any thought to
Plenty of time to get to the line of scrimmage and get the play off. Wanted to stay aggressive. Just ran the play like 2 plays before when we tried to stick it there in Ertz, and we got the roughing the passer play, so it was a simple play. Got lined up and had plenty of time.
What did you think about how Nick played? Obviously, got to a good start after
Yeah.
the interception, a couple of missed throws.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I'm sure we'll look at the tape and evaluate that, but there's always throws you'd like to have back in every game, But I thought the way he hung in there and battled and gave our offense a chance to go down and possibly win this football game. So I thought overall he played pretty well.
Doug, how much did the momentum change by that first Lattimore interception? Where you said the momentum changed?
Yeah, you felt it a little bit, But we had a lot of confidence. Even at that point, we felt like we were moving the ball. We stayed in rhythm, and
You never scored again, huh?
No, I know, but we felt even on that drive, we felt like we could have scored had we hit that play, but kind of changed after that point, and again, credit the Saints for executing.
What was the effect of losing Brandon and Fletch for long stretches and Russell for long stretches, in addition to a few others?
Yeah, I mean it's hard, it's tough. Those guys are solid players, they're starters, and it's unfortunate we lose those guys for Brandon for the rest of the game, but those guys for periods of time. It's disruptive a little bit, but it's kind of been our season a little bit. Fighting through that adversity, and we did get them back, but credit them too for playing through a little injury.
The fake punt they ran after the game, 14 nothing. They'd run that play before. Obviously, they wasn't be cold there or anything, but how crucial was that play?
Yeah, I mean it's you kind of expect it in that situation. It's 4th and 1. You just got to be prepared for that, and again, just a great play by them.
On that play, Fletch was in the game, which would indicate to me maybe that you were ready for the fake punt, or if you would have been in there. Did you have like a sort of?
We'd had our defense stay call, so our defense was on the field.
What happened on 3rd and 16 to get converted for the half? 3rd and 16, I mean, that was obviously a question for Jim, but
That was the one over the middle.
yeah, about 21 yard.
Yeah.
You guys dropped in the zone.
Yeah, we were dropping in the zone, and just again, Drew did a good job just hanging on the football and letting his guys get down the field. I mean, there was just a window right there, in the middle of the field, and got it and got the first down.
So there were 2 points this season where it just seemed like it was over here, and then a few weeks ago in Dallas. What brought you back to the point where you were relevant going into January?
The guys in that locker room, got a lot of trust, a lot of faith in those guys. My coaches, just just believing that we could get ourselves in this position, and be in the postseason. It is one of our goals. Obviously, is to be playing in January, and it's I've said all season, a resilient group that doesn't waver a whole lot, through adversity. Makes you tougher, makes you battle that much harder. So those guys in the locker room really fought through that and gave us the opportunity to be in this position.
Doug, at the end of it.
Going into that last drive, I mean, we've seen it so many times from the team, and especially from that quarterback, when you have a chance, especially after the roughing the passer call, at that point, did you think, here we go?
I mean, I thought that we were on our way. We got that. We got the, it just felt like the momentum at that point. I mean, it was in our favor, kind of in our hands, and it's been that way all season, and felt like that sort of that magic was going to continue.
Doug, did you have any special message for Nick after the game, being that this may possibly could be
I just told him I appreciate everything he's done, and everything that he's done this season, and for him to come in and step in the way he has. I mean, just told him I loved him, and we'll probably visit in the next couple of days.
And then JP, sort of a similar question. You couldn't finish the game, obviously, but is he a guy that you would like to have back next season?
Well, I'm gonna, obviously, I'm gonna punt that question and talk about that later.
A couple more plays for you, Doug, knowing that some of these guys, like Nick, like Brandon Graham, like Jason Peters, has to be in the back of your mind that decisions are going to have to be made about these guys. Gotta be more.
I mean, it's tough. because these guys, you build relationships with these guys. You spend so much time together, and your roster every year. Your roster is going to change. I mean, that's just the way it is. There's people are going to come, people are going to go, and obviously we'll talk more about it, in the next few days. But when you build a relationship like that, and you know these guys personally, makes it that much harder.
You made big history with them too. I mean,
well, and that's the thing is, we've won a Super Bowl with these guys, and we'll see where we go at the end.
How did your defense contain this, explosive offense at home on a week of rest? I mean, the spread was the over was 53. It didn't come close.
Oh no, I tell you, I credit the defense. I mean, they got after Drew, which we had to do. I think the one statistical thing I think was the third downs. I think they were 8 of 15 on third down. That was kind of the big glaring statistic that kind stood out, and then conversely, I think we were 2 of 7. So that to me kind of is the telltale right there. We just couldn't get off the field enough defensively with 15 third downs. I mean, it's a credit to get to 15, but then we got to get off the field. Conversely, 7 for third downs is great, but you should at least convert 4 or 5 of those.
Yeah, a ton of injuries all season long, obviously, and then this game was sort of a tough on that, and a lot of guys go down in the game. What does that kind of say about, you made it to the divisional round, playoffs obviously despite that. So what does that kind of say about the team going forward in terms of what they can be?
Well, and I tell you, you got to have a lot of confidence in the guys, in the coaches. I mean, to get to this position, to be in the divisional round, 2 games away from the Super Bowl again, I mean, it's tough in this league. It's tough to win games, and even back when a lot of people were counting us out, in mid-season and after the Dallas game, things like that. It's why you play 16 games, to give yourself a position, shot to be in this position, and it's a credit. Looking forward, it's a good football team, and we're going to learn from this. We'll be better for it.
Doug, what did they do defensively to squelch you for the last 3 quarters? Did they change anything? Did they just play better?
No, I just think they just played a little bit better. They controlled the line of scrimmage a little better. Our run game just kind of, I don't want to say disappeared, but it wasn't very good, there, and tried to continue to run it. And, it just felt like that, we had some formation issues and some things like that kind of had to burn a couple timeouts there. But other than that, I think just credit them for their effort and making the plays. Thank you.
Heartbroken, Doug Pearson, very, very emotional, and you could see the love that the players and the coaches have for each other. Obviously, very, very difficult way to end the season, and I think you add on to this, Ike, and you certainly understand this from your time in the NFL. This team is not coming back next year. Okay, right. You may have head coach Doug Pearson and a lot of the same key players, but by and large, it's going to be a different locker room next year. That's why when media fans will say, can you carry the momentum from one year to the next? I mean, we're talking about 9 months from now before this team is going to play a meaningful game, one that's going to count in the standings again. You're going to have free agency, you're going to have draft, you're going to have injuries. There's going to be a lot that takes place during that time. It's not going to be the same locker room, even if you bring back a lot of the same amount of guys. There's going to be additions, subtractions. So the 2018 Philadelphia Eagles, that iteration of it, that's done at this point.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the business of the NFL. Each year is his own individual year. I mean, the makeup of that team, that personality, those players, it's unto itself. Yep. And so when you look at what was on the field tonight, I could guess 20 players at least won't be here next year. When you think about draft picks and free agency, things of that nature, there's roster turnover every year on every ball club. And so when you have a ball club like the Eagles, where they basically have been in a championship run the last couple of years, there's also going to be veterans that may not be here. So it's when you leave that field for the final time, whether it be in Minneapolis with the confetti coming down or it's in New Orleans, when you reconvene in April, whenever the offseason program starts, there's going to be a lot of new faces. And most certainly when you step on that field next September for that opening game, it'll be a completely different roster, a makeup, different personalities, a different character that this team will identify itself with. And that's the business of the NFL. And that's why you have to cherish these years.
And the thing is, you focus on the change from year to year. Players' roles are going to be different, even throughout the course of the season. Adding guys like Crayvon LeBlanc. I mean, you're going to have different guys added to the mix. Avonte Max was expected to be a special teams contributor, and he comes up being an impactful starter on the outside for you. Golden Tate wasn't on this team, up until the trade deadline just before Halloween. So you're going to have new faces, new personalities added to the mix all the time. So to recap Doug Pearson's press conference, I think you hit on it perfectly. Third down was a huge difference. Third down offense had been outstanding for the Eagles to get themselves into the playoffs and into the divisional round. Well, 2 of 7 today. And then the defense giving up 8 of 15 to Drew Brees. And Doug Pearson said it best. Sure, it was great we got them into third down situations, some third and long situations, but unfortunately, you're just not able to get off the field. You need to make one more play, just to maybe keep one field goal off the boards, and maybe you only need a field goal on the final drive instead of a touchdown, and maybe that changes the complexion of everything. But still, the Eagles were in position at the end, but you just needed to make one more play. And, if you came into this game saying that the defense is only going to give up 20 points to the New Orleans Saints, you're going to quite honestly take that every single day of the week, okay? You figure that this offense, the way it had played, final 6 regular season games with Wentz and Nick Foles at quarterback there, averaged 27 points per game. 3rd highest rate in the league, down the stretch there. If you factor in last week's game of 16 points, I think it was an average still over 24 points per game, close to 25. You figure we're going to have enough to be able to get the win if we're holding that team to 20. Other noticeable set here, red zone. Okay, last week in the win over the Bears were 0 for 3 in the red zone. Breeze and company, 2 for 2 on the day. That's the difference right there for you. This was the number 1 red zone defense that the Eagles had in the NFL this season. Unfortunately, it just wasn't up to the task today against, the difference going against a future Hall of Famer and an outstanding play caller at coach and Coach Sean Payton.
Yeah, and when you're on the road and you're going up against a guy like Drew Brees, when opportunities present itself, you got to take advantage of those opportunities. And also, and that could be on the offensive side of the ball or the defensive side of the ball. If it's 3rd and long, you got to get off the field. You have to get off the field. You can't give up big 3rd down conversions. You can't give Drew Brees in this offense another set of downs. When I look at the box score and I look at the biggest difference in this game, it's not only that 3rd down, but the 3rd down is what contributes to the other factor, which is time of possession. The Saints had the ball for 37 minutes, almost 15 minutes longer than the Eagles had it. That's basically 3/4 to 1/4 that the Saints had the ball over the Eagles. It's going to be difficult for any defense to keep this Saints offense out of the end zone if they have the ball that much. But it's not just the offense who have to extend drives. The defense has to get off the field on 3rd down.
Certainly. So as we go, wait to hear from quarterback Nick Foles in just a little bit. We might as well get into your other takeaways from the season. You talked about how the Eagles had got off to a slow start. They had to overcome the Super Bowl hangover.
Yeah,
okay, because again, that's the thing that you mentioned. They had to learn about what that was going to be like here in 2018. I know Doug Pearson, who had been through it as a player, said to embrace the target. But it looks like it's something that you don't truly understand until you experience it for yourself. You can be told time and time again, this is what's going to be like, where every team is going to be coming after you. But until you're seeing that week in and week out, you're not going to understand the pressures and challenges that come with that.
Yeah, and the team had to find out about that firsthand this year, and it's hard to explain that until you actually go through it. I mean, there are a few players that could talk about it, Malcolm Jenkins, Chris Long, guys that have won championships other places, but it's hard to really get that through to players if they've never gone through it. And they had to fight their way through it. Not only that, they dealt with some injuries as well. When you're playing an extended season, when you're playing until February, you're playing more football than anybody else in the league. And it took a while for some of these guys to get back on the field. You lose guys like Jay Ajayi, right? That hurts you. Not really having a clear running identity early in the season. That took a while to sort of formulate itself. So I think the extended season coupled with the shorter offseason, that contributed to the whole Super Bowl hangover, and it took them a while to sort of fight their way out of that.
You mentioned the run game and losing Jay Ajayi and Corey Clement throughout the course of the season. Doug Pearson said it, there really just wasn't much of a run game. And you knew that last week going against Chicago and the top-ranked defense, and you were just trying to keep the Bears honest. But believe it or not, the Saints' run defense just as good as the Bears. Second in terms of yards per game, second in the league this year in terms of yards per carry. And they actually lost arguably their best player along the interior of the line, Sheldon Rankins. Okay, they lost him to what was reportedly an Achilles injury. So you thought the Eagles might have the advantage. The frustrating and sad part, and we don't know the extent of the injury, the Eagles lose their Pro Bowl guard, Brandon Brooks, just a couple of plays later. That same drive, in fact. And that, you talk about the offensive line, that's a big reason why Nick Foles had great protection down the stretch, why the offense was able to round into form down the stretch, why the Eagles were able to make it to the divisional round of the postseason. Well, you have a huge domino that falls there with Brandon Brooks going out with the leg injury, and fingers crossed that it's not a significant injury that's going to impact his offseason preparation, because that's the big concern now at this point. But you take him out, at the right guard position. Jason Peters is battling injury. He has to come out of the game at left tackle. Stefan Wisniewski, a trusted veteran, he's played center, he's played left guard. He hasn't had to play that right guard spot for the Eagles, okay? He's worked in his start at left guard here this season, had to fill in for Kelsey in that Saints game. But right guard, Brandon Brooks, you've been able to put him there and leave him there, and he and Lane Johnson have been outstanding, especially down the stretch, especially when Lane Johnson got healthy, because he dealt with injuries throughout the course of the season. So, that goes to show right there that you need this offensive line to be healthy. You got to figure out how to fortify it. But the Eagles do need to figure out what they're going to do with the run game next season, because Jay Ajayi is scheduled to become a free agent. Corey Clement coming back from the injury. Darren Sproles, we don't know what the future holds for him. Josh Adams showed some promise, but obviously wasn't in the mix offensively late in the season. Wendell Smallwood, nice turnaround here, or someone who had been inactive, a minor role contributor, to being a big part of the offense all of a sudden down the stretch. I thought he actually made some huge strides in terms of pass pickup, because that was one of the weaknesses in his game and why he not been able to be on the field time after time again. There were a couple times when the Saints brought pressure and he's able to step up there and help him out, much like Darren Sproles, who's very, very good in that regard. But, the Eagles had the run game going early, and then, once, maybe it was with the Brooks injury, maybe it was once the secondary was able to clamp down on the Eagles receivers and pass catchers, that they were able to just win the battles of the line of scrimmage and make sure that there was no ground game going for the Eagles, and everything was going to be in Nick Foles' hands.
Yeah, and that's difficult. That's difficult to sustain when you're on the road. You want to play good defense, and you want to have a sustainable running game. And the Eagles today, 14 rushes, 49 yards. When you take out of Nick Foles, 2 rushes, right? When you look at the other running backs, not really a sustainable running game. And we knew last week that the Eagles they got away with not being able to run the ball last week versus Chicago. Going up against the Saints team, a better offense, a more efficient offense, you needed to have a semblance of a running game, if for no other reason, to keep that Saints offense on the sideline, to help you sustain drives.
All right, let's get to your last takeaway here, and it's the fact that the Eagles finished strong here, so that they, start off slow. They overcame the Super Bowl hangover, but this team that, remember, 48-7 loss, Week 11, November 18th in New Orleans. The following week, a lot of people don't recall this, they were down 19-3 against the Giants.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of people could have been like, that's the season. All right,
yeah.
This it's not going to happen this year.
And the Giants were driving the score.
Yes, exactly. So that's the thing. I remember Michael Bennett suffered the foot injury in that game.
Yeah.
Led a valiant effort in the second half to get the Eagles to win. So that helped turn the tide around for the Eagles, okay? They win 2 of their next 3 games with Carson Wentz at quarterback. Wentz is out with a back injury. Nick Foles leads them into the playoffs, winning the final 3 regular season games and then the wild card round. So definitely finishing strong there. Goes back to the leadership of Doug Pearson and the quality of character inside the Eagles locker room with the leadership that the players have.
Yeah, I think you got to start with the head coach. You got to start with Doug Peterson. You talk about how the Eagles were after that Saints game, that embarrassing loss, 48-7. They rallied to finish 6-2. When you look at their last 8 games, they won 6 of their last 8 games, finding themselves in the playoffs, able to go on the road and win a playoff game in Chicago. Really had the ball with an opportunity to go ahead late in this game against the Saints. You gotta at least appreciate the way this team finished down the stretch. That's a testament to the head coach, the hold that he has over this locker room, the fact that these players, they continue to play hard for him. His number one trait as a head coach, not his ability to call plays, not his ability to pick players, but his ability to get his players to play for him every week. His ability to get his players to believe in themselves as well as to believe in their coaches. That's the biggest thing that I take away from the way this season ended, is that we have the right man leading us in Doug Peterson as the head coach. And moving forward, you have to feel good about where this organization is headed because the foundation is is strong. The front office is strong from an ownership standpoint, from a front office personnel standpoint, and then you look at the head coach as well as some of the young talent that you have on his team moving forward, starting with Carson Wentz, who's going to have a full offseason to get healthy and get back in to the quarterback position and lead this organization going forward. You have to be excited about the way this team finished up the season, because they could have very easily thrown in the towel and hung their hat on the fact that they won the Super Bowl last year, but they weren't satisfied. They weren't going to just lay down and let the season go to waste. Give them a lot of credit. These players, they fought to the end, and what do you know? They found themselves in the second round, coming up a little short against a very good New Orleans Saints team.
I mean, you look in the playoffs that they went on the road against the Bears, a team that had not hosted a playoff game since 2010, and Foles was able to move the ball against the number 1 ranked defense. They were able to withstand the Bears' final drive as Trayvon Hester, tips the Cody Parkey attempt and a double doinks that gives the Eagles a win. That was an undermanned team going against a team that was outstanding from the start of the season. Okay, they were able to negate Khalil Mack, one of the league's best players. Forget offense, defense, just best players. Period. They were able to neutralize him to get to the second round, and they knew the challenges that they had at hand today, going against Drew Brees and Sean Payton, and an offensive line that probably doesn't get enough credit. That's one of the best in the league. Again, Drew Brees was sacked, I believe, twice today. He had only been sacked 17 times in 15 starts this season. Absolutely outstanding. And the pass catchers, let's send it now to the Superdome. Nick Foles addressing the media.
They really did a good job of, showing us different looks. But, at the end of the day, we didn't execute. We got to be able to – first 2 drives were great. But after that, we have to keep it going. But, they're a tremendous team. Hats off to them. Unfortunately – we had an opportunity at the end, and, it's tough. It's tough. You love playing this game with, your teammates, and that's the toughest part about it is it stops. And, 31 teams feel this at the end of the season. I'd say the hardest part is you develop I talk about relationships. You develop relationships with your teammates, and, for it to end is tough, just being with these guys. But, we were able to spend time in the locker room after, and that's what this game's about, is those relationships.
Nick, you talked a lot during the playoffs about being happy that you got to this point because you got to wear the uniform one last time. When you walked off this field, did it feel like the last time you'll be wearing this uniform?
I'm not really going to worry about it right now. I think, I'm just going to do what I can to enjoy this fight back with my teammates, and we'll see what happens. I do know that, we went out there and gave it everything we had tonight. And that's where, everyone's got to keep their heads held high, because that's what it's about. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but ultimately if you give it everything you have, that's what it's about.
Nick, saw you and other teammates pick up Alshon right after that last play. What do you say to him at that time?
Oh, dude, you just tell him you love him. That's what it's about. This game is tough. Not everyone can do it in those moments. Just tell them, I love you, let's keep going. Amongst other things that I'll keep to myself, but that's the general message, and that's what this team's about. That's what playing this game's about, is developing those relationships. To the tough part about it, like I said, is when it's over, it's over. But I don't regret anything. I always play this game to develop relationships, because that's what makes it a strong team.
Nick, what was the confidence level on that last drive? Alshon's been so money on those catches. How surprising was it that he didn't get that one?
No, that's part of the game. Can't look back and, say what if or what, the confidence level in the huddle was extremely confident, like always. We go in there, we get in the huddle every time and expect to march right down the field. We were moving the ball, and unfortunately it didn't go our way. But that's the tough part about this game. You win through losses, you win through wins. This is something that all of us are going to learn from, and we'll be better for. I've talked a lot about, my career in the NFL and the ups and downs. You're always learning, and we learned a lot tonight, and it's tough, but we'll keep moving on.
What happened with the interception, the first one?
First one, he made a good play. Was trying to take a shot downfield. Need to get the ball up probably another foot or so, but I believe it was Lattimore made a good play.
Nick, I'm sure, whether this is your final game or not, I'm sure you're aware of how much the fans in Philadelphia just adore you, and nobody wants to see you go. How does that make you feel?
I think the big thing is, what the city means to me. It's always welcomed me and my family. It's really been a joy to live there and be a part of everything and, wear the green and wear the jersey. So no matter what, you can't ever take that away. We were able to do some really special things. So, we'll see what happens. But I'll tell you this, I've enjoyed every single moment. And it'll always have a special place in my heart, the city, the fans, the people, everything about it. There's nothing like playing in the link in front of the crowd. It's some of my favorite moments. My family's got to experience them. My daughters got to experience them. So we'll see what happens, but I've enjoyed everything.
And so you said there's confidence in the huddle there. After the missed field goal, were you thinking about last week? Were you thinking about previous game when you drive? What goes through your mind?
Just what's the play? What's the next play? That's all that matters. I talk about staying in the moment. Playing in the Superdome, we have an opportunity to go down and score at the end. The only thing I'm worried about is the play, and then recognizing what the defense is doing, and then ultimately executing the play. So just simplifying things in my head in those moments so I can go out there and, march down the field.
What happened you had a throw to Nelson, he didn't look back. What was the mix up there, or was there?
It's just a miss. Different covers, different things. Part of this game, you take shots, and I think ultimately, I wish I would put a little more air on it. That's the tough part about the game is we didn't execute in that. I got to throw a better ball.
Was that a route that was he had two options based upon the coverage, or was that just a straight?
He has a couple options.
You were thinking you were thinking of a certain thing.
Yeah, ultimately we didn't execute.
Did you overall just not feel as sharp as you have the last stretch?
No, football is a funny sport. Especially playoff football. It's tough. I felt like we started the game off hot and we were battling the rest of the game, and we gave ourselves the opportunity to win the game at the end based on how our team was playing. You wish you could get it done, but at the end of the day, New Orleans did a great job of fighting themselves and giving themselves a win, and ultimately they won. So I feel good about everyone's effort. I know everyone gave everything. This is tough just because this is the last time this team will be together, and that's the toughest part about this.
You said that 31 other teams have this feeling. Does it feel differently this year because of the way that the team kind of had the momentum going into this game? Or
No, it's always difficult. Fortunately, we were able to be the one team that finished on top, and that's just an electrifying feeling. It doesn't really matter. If you're not that one team, it's tough. Like I said, because the locker room changes and that's it. But I know, we fought our way all season. The guys are resilient. Our coaches are resilient. Everyone at the facility is resilient, and they showed that. So everyone should be very proud of what they were able to accomplish. Ultimately, it wasn't our end goal, but it's like I said, everyone should keep their heads held high because, we were able to, really pick it up the last 4 weeks or so, and, we were so close all throughout the year. And that's a testament to the people that, are in the facility, the guys in the locker room, because most teams aren't able to do that and fight like this team has.
And Nick, I'm sure there's a swirl of emotions in a moment like this. If you could just help kind of describe what they are.
I think the thing right now is just your emotions are you're trying to figure them out right now. There's a lot going on. Ultimately, all I can really think about is just enjoying this fight with my teammates. I know we wish we were continuing on, but that's part of this game. Just enjoying that, seeing them tomorrow. That's really all I'm thinking about.
Nick, your objective is still to be a starter in this league, correct?
Yeah, I think we'll see what happens in the future. Once again, I'm not going to speculate on that. But, yeah, I love leading a team. I love, being in the huddle, being a part of a locker room, doing that. That's, why I play the game.
Does it seem like, Nick, that injuries are kind of the story of the season? Again, today, they were a big part of the narrative.
That's football, though. Injuries happen. We showed that last year. We had a lot of injuries, and we were able to overcome them. And, ultimately, I know tonight a couple of guys got banged up, but that's part of the game. Next guy up. And, I've always said the guys who are injured are still there supporting our team. And that's something that's really special. But, that's just part of football.
Take a couple more questions.
How much do you want to stay in Philadelphia?
That's a tough question. It's a really unique situation. Something that honestly I need time to just step back. I love the city. I love playing there. We have 3 guys in that quarterback room that can play in this league, and that's the part about it. But I'll tell you this: no matter what happens, it's been a joy playing in the city, being in that quarterback room with Carson and Nate. Going to work every day, and I know we talked about it earlier, but the city means so much to me and my family, and it always will.
You spoke how Carson was by your side throughout the run to the Super Bowl championship. You spoke about it again this time. What was his message to you after this being a loss?
Yeah, I think Carson and Nate, we're all together. I think the big thing is just love and support for one another in that quarterback room. It's tough too when the season comes to an end because we do so much together with film study, with supporting each other on the sidelines and practice. So for it to come to an end is tough, but like I said, you always cherish those relationships you develop going to work every day. So just having Carson and Nate be supportive of me this last stretch, and when Carson was playing or if Nate's playing, it's a special quarterback room because of the support system and something that we don't take for granted.
What would be your message to the fans who I'm sure are as heartbroken as you are right now?
I'd say the big thing is, I would like to thank them for their support. It's not ultimately, how we wanted to end the season, but I think, this team represents what Philly's about. People counted us out, and we were able to continue to fight and give us an opportunity to enter the playoffs and then win the first round. And, we had an opportunity to win this game. And this team never stopped fighting, much like the city of Philadelphia. That's just sort of, living in the city, that's just who the people are. But ultimately, I just want to say how grateful I am for everything they've done, every moment in the link, and, just continue to support the Eagles. And there's a bright future here with this team and everyone there.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank y'all.
Absolutely perfectly said. Right there at the end. We have been so fortunate over the last 2 seasons to have Carson Wentz and Nick Foles represent this football team, to play the quarterback position and to play that leadership role. And Nick Foles epitomizes right there everything you want in a quarterback, okay? Obviously talked about the game and, the fact that they didn't execute, but once you get the immediacy of the loss out of the way, it's just talking about how over the last 9 months he's been in the bunker with these guys day in and day out. And this is the final plane ride they're going to take together. It's the last couple hours that they're going to have together really as a team. They will come to the facility on Monday. They'll have a final meeting and clean out their lockers, go through exit physicals. But their minds are quickly, shifting gears toward the offseason and then getting out of here and getting away from football for a little bit. But to hear Nick Foles, all I can say is thank you. We don't know what the future holds. We don't know what's going to happen, but absolutely thank you for everything, for allowing us to be a part of this magical run, for not just the quarterback play, but again the way that he's represented himself and this football team. He is has to be one of the most admired athletes in the country for the fact that he is proficient on the field, but with the message that he carries with him about his teammates and relationships and the brotherhood. And that's what sports is all about. That's the best part of it all. And watching he and Carson Wentz work together the last couple of years, it's, like Foles at the end, it's a bright future here in Philadelphia with great things to come. So just a tip of the cap to you, Nick Foles. Nicky Six, no matter what happens, just thanks for everything right there.
I don't know if I could say it any better than what you just said, Chris. I mean, the guy is genuine. We've been fortunate as Eagles fans to have Nick Foles here. I was excited when they brought him back 2 years ago under this regime. I was sad to see him go the first time when we traded him for Sam Bradford. Have always been a big fan of Nick Foles. And for what Nick Foles has done for this organization, for the city of Philadelphia, no matter what his future holds for him, no matter what team he goes on to play for. And he's more than likely played his last game as an Eagle. And he's going to always be an Eagle. He's an Eagle great. I think one day he'll be enshrined in the Eagles Hall of Fame, as he rightfully should be. He's one of the greatest Eagles of all time. He was a big part in delivering the most coveted trophy that this city has yearned for throughout the history of sports in this town. He was a big part of bringing that here, being the Super Bowl MVP. And when this season looked like it was over, it was Nick Foles that infused life into this team and into this city one more time, and it was the perfect swan song. Well, I shouldn't say perfect because it didn't end in another Super Bowl title.
No,
but
pretty darn close, though.
But if the season was going to end, he's at quarterback. He was perfect for us last year to end the season. It didn't end the way we wanted it to end, but with him being the quarterback for us, I'm perfectly fine for that. And just like you said, I tip my cap to you as well, Nikki Sixx. Thank you for being a fantastic Eagle, and good luck to whatever your future may hold for you.
He is as exceptional off the field as he is on.
Genuine.
That's
He's
absolutely
genuine,
the
man.
best part is the fact that
Genuine.
what you see is what you get. There's no filter, there's no facade, anything along those lines. He is that way each and every day, and it just seemed like when the lights are the brightest, he's the most calmest, he's able to deliver. You know, whether it's, facing the media during Super Bowl week, all those press conferences and telling his story about, his wife's disease and, how that, fueled him and how he talked about walking away from the game and, he got his career re-energized with Andy Reid in Kansas City and then came back here to Philadelphia and just, he almost went to Tampa Bay last year, and that one move, that one decision, and he said largely because he loved the city of Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And this is a man who's never have to buy another meal in this town again. But the fact that the fans openly embraced him from the start, helped him want to come back here. And in return, he delivers, like you said, the greatest trophy that this city has wanted, for forever. Since that first Super Bowl, you have your Stanley Cups, you have your World Series trophies, everything else, but you have all these great parades. But everyone said that the Eagles have their parade after winning a Super Bowl, it is going to be epic, and
it was.
It was beyond expectations. Absolutely breathtaking. So what we're going to do now is we heard from head coach Doug Pearson a short time ago in his press conference. He spoke a short time ago with Hall of Fame wide receiver Mike Quick, came down from the broadcast booth. Always the best interview Doug does after the game because he's completely candid and open and honest with Mike Quick. And I think Mike does a great job of getting to the point with the questions that need to be asked that elicit the great responses from head coach Doug Pearson. So here's that one-on-one interview right now.
Coach, on that final drive, looks like you're going to have an opportunity to pull this thing out. The ball goes through Alshon's hand, they intercept it. What do you say to a player after something like that happens?
You just got to remind him that he's a good player, and he's made a ton of catches for us. He's made some big plays for us this season, last season, helped us win a championship. And one play is not going to define Alshon Jeffrey. There's no way.
There are a lot of guys on the sideline consulting Alshon. Was that message pretty much the same?
It's the same. It's the same, and it's going to sting, obviously, but we're going to surround him. We're going to rally around him, and he's going to be better for it. We're going to be better for it, and we move forward.
This wasn't that slow start today. You got off to an early start. What worked so well early in this football game?
I think early on we had a little off, kept them off balance a little bit, and mixed had a really good run of pass and run, and we made some plays, and then as the game kind of wore on, we had that interception. Lattimore had that pick on Alshon or on Zach Ertz there in the second quarter. Felt like we had some momentum, and then at that point, I think they went down, scored, and just you could kind of feel things turn just a little bit. But our guys were still engaged. They were full throttle, and gave us a chance to win it at the end.
Did your defense wear down at all? The 71 plays they had, and your side you had 47 offensive plays.
Yeah, that's something we can't have. They had that long drive, obviously in the third quarter, but basically took the entire third quarter, and that's tough. It's tough on our guys, and then we had the a number of injuries, guys Guys missing.
Yep.
Brandon missed the entire game. Fletcher missed substantial time. Razul, all different guys. Brandon Graham. So it's hard. But listen, you gotta find a way. You gotta find a way to get off the field, especially when defensively, you have 15 third downs in the game. The Saints do, and we got to make sure we get off the field.
But no one expected you to come down here and win. How could you expect to come down here? What made you think that you could come down here and beat the Saints?
I just believe in our guys. I believe in trusting our players and our coaches and my coaches, and that's a lot of confidence coming down here. We felt like the first game was not us, not who we were, and we've battled all season. So we've been battle tested, and felt like this was obviously a great environment for us to come down here and win this game.
Well, let me tell you, I've enjoyed the way you put this thing together through adversity, and look forward to working with you more.
I appreciate it, Quick.
You got it.
Thanks.
All right, interesting stat there, and Mike Quick brought it up there. 71 plays run by the Saints compared to 47 for the Eagles, and that's the end of the game numbers. Consider the fact that the Eagles scored on their first 2 drives. The second drive the Eagles had went for 10 plays. Yeah. So really, it was after those first 2 drives. I mean, the Eagles obviously scored no points, but really never even threatened to put any other additional points on the board up until the final drive, which ended with the interception, the second of the game, by Marshawn Lattimore.
Yeah, listen, the Eagles defense came out smoking, as well as the offense. The Saints offense was 3 and out their first couple of drives. But like you said,
the interception started the game.
After that first quarter, it's pretty much it boils down to not being able to get off the field on third down, and then not converting third downs on offense.
How ironic is it that for most of the season, first quarter was the bugaboo for the Eagles, not able to get off to fast starts, and then finally pouring it on in the second half, and you hope, okay, is this going to carry over to next week? Well, in the divisional round of the playoffs, the Eagles get off to a brilliant start, blazing start.
Couldn't have asked for a better start.
Yeah. 14-0, and we're driving, to possibly put more points on the board. And then the Marshawn Lattimore interception really started to turn the tide there, gave the Saints some life, and they whittled away to come out with a 20-14 victory. So we're going to take our first break here on the Postgame Show presented by Ricoh. On the other side, we're going to go in the film room as the mad scientists Fran Duffy and Greg Cosell break down one of the biggest plays from tonight's game. If you are following us right now on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, you need to come on over to PhiladelphiaEagles.com or the app to watch the rest of the show. We're going to tie a bow on this 2018 season and start to look ahead to what's going to lie ahead for the offseason. We'll be back after these messages.